Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and there's a stain on my shirt that I did not know existed until we started filming.
It's a pretty noticeable stain.
But I'm not going to go change, baby, because I love y'all. And with me, as always, is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voice.
Good morning, Stainstradamus. And welcome to all of our listeners. Well, I know you love dinosaurs, so I decided to find a dinosaur joke for you. Would you like to hear it?
Rar.
Why can't you hear a pterodactyl going to the bathroom?
Because they do it in the air. I don't know.
So literal. It's because the P is silent.
Okay.
Unless you're my brother-in-law, then it's pterodactyl.
Yes, my brother grew up calling it pterodactyl, and that's what we call it. For new listeners, Voice and I enjoy reading and talking about stories from the internet that are interesting, funny, and dramatic. Because of our love of stories, we've come together and created this channel to share with you those experiences.
And hopefully give you some food for thought.
So, Voice.
So, Timstradamus.
What have you crafted for Stainstradamus this morning?
Well, I decided to craft for you an exciting brew for today's stories. A black chai tea.
Okay, that's a 3 out of 5.
Do you feel the spice?
I feel something.
I think we're talking about that stain again. We should really move away from that now.
How dare you?
Well, while you go ahead and try and deal with that stain, your tea, why don't we go ahead and delve into these stories? For our first story.
I don't want to go into the first story with this stain. We're taking it off. New year, new Damas.
New year, new Damas. Oh, it looks like it. So why don't we go ahead and delve into these stories while you deal with that drink? For our first story. Am I the a-hole? I yelled at my daughter-in-law for missing her own son's birth. My daughter gave birth. This is pretty simple in my opinion. My daughter, I'll call her Amber, 28 female, and her wife Chloe, 32 female, decided to have a baby. Amber was due next week and asked me to come and stay with her a few days until her giving birth. I gladly did. All this time, Chloe, who is a doctor, worked crazy hours and barely paid Amber any attention. I kept it to myself and thought it would be best if I didn't say anything about it. 2 days ago, Amber's water broke and I rushed her to the hospital. She gave birth a week earlier than expected and she needed to have an emergency C-section. All this time, I was trying to reach Chloe and she was not available. She showed up a few hours after the birth and said she was sorry she was in the OR and didn't have her phone with her at the time. I got really mad and called her irresponsible, said it was crazy that she misses her own son's birth, and asked her to explain what would have happened if Amber had some kind of complication during the C-section. Chloe said she couldn't let someone die under her supervision because of this, and made it as soon as she could. I still can't believe she obviously doesn't prioritize Amber or her son, but my poor daughter thinks otherwise. Anyway, ever since Amber told me I was out of line and needed to apologize to Chloe, Chloe hasn't said a word to me, and by the way, she still goes to the hospital and doesn't seem to care that her son is here. Was I really the a-hole here?
What's wrong with OP?
Everything.
This is from the mother-in-law's perspective.
We don't know if it's a mother-in-law or father-in-law.
Okay, but it is the parent.
Correct.
Okay. So Chloe is a doctor, and she's in the middle of a surgery right now.
Literally in the operating room.
While her wife is giving birth to their child. And I think it's a little early. So it wasn't in the window that they thought the child was coming. So this is something that Chloe could have taken time off for to make sure she was there.
Correct.
There's never going to be something that goes exactly to plan. ROP is going out of their way to shame Chloe for not being there during the birth. How is that irresponsible in any measure? You do owe Amber's wife an apology, and you need to step back a little bit. I think you're holding on too tight. And doing that to your adult children with their partners is going to end up putting a wedge between you and your daughter. So, in my opinion, OP, you are the a-hole.
Our consensus on Reddit is that our OP is definitely the a-hole. In fact, many of them say, so you want them to stop working in the middle of an operation, drop everything that they're doing, to go ahead and realize that their partner has suddenly gone into birth earlier than expected. Seems reasonable enough. Additionally, many individuals came out in the comments section and were saying surgeons work brutal hours. And if Chloe is either in residency or in a very junior position, they're probably on call a lot because they're trying to establish their career. Other individuals actually pointed out Amber reached out to our OP, probably realizing that Chloe wouldn't be able to be there and she didn't want to be alone, understandably. That rather than go ahead and be supportive, you're trying to flip things around to be more dramatic than it has to be.
Well, that might be how she's trying to claw her way into a more important role into the family dynamics.
Oh, that's a very good
people do those type of things.
Well, I would just like to say she needs to get her negatrons and move away.
What's a negatron?
A negatron is something that I just learned. It means negative energy.
Okay. That's a good one.
Well, let's go to our next story and see what you think about this next family situation. Am I the a-hole for telling fiance she's selfish for not letting extended family move in? I'm 30 male. I have been with my fiance 28 for 7 years, and we currently don't have any kids. We do plan on trying in the next year or so. My fiance just graduated from her RN program, so a lot's been on hold since she was in school. Recently, me and my 2 younger siblings had to put our mother in a nursing home because of Alzheimer's. Both my siblings and nephew has lived with my mom all their lives. My 26-year-old brother has severe autism and anxiety, while my sister, 22, is a young mom to a 4-year-old who's been hopping jobs needing my mom's support. Their dad, who's not my dad, lives states away and hasn't offered to help or take them in during this time, which leaves me as the oldest sibling to fix things. While my fiance is aware of everything that's going on, before we even started talking about arrangements, she told me, "Don't even think about moving anyone in here." I told her she needs to consider what my family is going through, and she seems to have no empathy. She started throwing out how my sister has always been codependent on my mom with her kid, and that it's not our problem to fix. I've never sensed my fiance truly loving my sister, but she's been cordial. She also said my siblings are too grown to be depending on their brother, especially since I plan to get married and have children in the next couple years. We do have 2 spare bedrooms, one which my fiance wanted to make an office, but I said that could possibly wait since I'm strongly considering moving them in for just a year. A year. My fiance said within that year we'd most likely never marry, and that the dream family we planned on having wouldn't happen. I told her of course I'd charge my siblings rent because we did just move. She told me that was BS because neither of them have good jobs, and that was the reason they never moved out of my mom's to begin with. She also thinks a year is far too long, and most likely we wouldn't be able to get them out. I asked her what is the point of marriage if we can't make sacrifices together. A big reason I'm marrying her is because of how thoughtful and religious she is, but I'm seeing a whole different person when we talk about this. I told her she was selfish as fuck for not understanding, and I know she would move her siblings in if the situation was reversed. She says I'm selfish for throwing our future family's plans down the drain and supporting grown adults. Am I the a-hole?
So let me try to frame this story. It's very interesting. I think a lot of people probably go through this same type of scenario within their life.
No doubt, yeah.
And you have to have those type of conversations with your partner, and they can be very tough. In this scenario, we've got the OP, which is, I'm guessing, the eldest. They have a brother and a sister who are adults that live with their mother. Unfortunately, their mother got diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Through that diagnosis, they've put their mother in a home so she can be better cared for. Now, this means that the siblings that were living with her, I'm guessing they were dependent upon her.
Correct. The brother has severe autism and anxiety. We don't know any more than that, but his sister is just a young mom that has a 4-year-old and she's been hopping jobs. That's all the information that we have from ROP.
Okay. The eldest brother is seeing his siblings and looking at them with compassion and maybe almost a
Too much leeway?
Maybe. Sometimes you can do that with your siblings, and it's hard to see what it is when you're wrapped up in your feelings. Because no matter how old you get, I think most people can attest to this, you still see them as your little brother and sister. You try not to, but he wants to bring them in. He wants to let them live with them for at least a year to help them, I'm assuming, get on their feet. Now, he tells us to his fiancé, they're about to start reaping the rewards of how hard she and he has been working. I'm not sure exactly what he does, but it sounds like they have the plans to have a family soon, get married. All the things you work for in life are finally starting to happen for them. Now, she says that she does not want OP's brother and sister moving in because that will put a halt to all of their life goals. Being in the scenario that it is, I can understand him wanting to care about them. We don't know enough about how they've conducted their lives up till now because I didn't hear anywhere where, yes, they were living with the mother depending on her, but were they saving the money? Do they have decent jobs? I don't know any of these things. And as a partner, if you're seeing this, I guess, situation coming at you and you're looking at it without the emotions, the way it sounds like his partner is, you probably would find yourself on that side of the fence too. I don't believe it's heartless. I think it's acceptable for her to have those opinions about his family because it sounds like it might be an open-ended trip. And I don't think that's fair to do to anyone, especially because we're talking about two people who are not even married. They don't have children. There isn't a whole lot of high stakes involved in this relationship quite yet.
Aside from feelings.
But what is an issue is we're starting to see now where two people in a relationship have very different values. Where our OP says families first. And on the other side, we have the fiance that says us first. She's worked very hard to get to where they're at. And I'm sure he has too. But if you're about to take that next step, time is of the essence. Putting things off again just because someone else's life happened to hit a bump doesn't make sense. There are ways that our OP can go about helping his siblings, but without it being fully on their shoulders. So in my opinion, OP, I think you would be the a-hole because you're not, don't get me wrong, you can still ask the question and be concerned. But when you heard that your partner said no, and she outlined why, you not taking into account how she feels about what you're trying to do to your life jointly is an issue. So you would be the a-hole. I do look forward to hearing the different perspectives on this one though, because I'm telling you, I am certain that people go through this exact situation in their lives.
Oh, no doubt. So the consensus on Reddit is that our OP is definitely the a-hole. In fact, I'm going to boil this down to one clear message throughout the comment section. People find it disgusting how the OP is trying to guilt trip his fiancé into becoming a caretaker when he clearly sees that's something she's not okay with. Now, they both have different priorities here. She is, as you're saying, prioritizing themselves and the future of the family that they're trying to create. He is prioritizing his family members that he has. Both of those are priorities that, depending on what kind of value you have in your life, people can side with. What I think a lot of people can't side with is when you can't respect that somebody says no on one side. And the fact that now that those values are no longer compatible with each other, it needs to have a point where potentially one side's going to break here. You can only have so much balance on a dried spaghetti before it breaks. Now, personally, I will go to this. You definitely make such a good point where the fiance in this story probably sees things more from a third party looking in. I think every family goes through it. And I think you, for sure, can actually speak when it comes to being the oldest of yours. And I, for sure, have spoken on understanding where empathy should no longer play a piece. And it needs to be something of a more logical, more conclusive on what it is that I can visualize in our future together. I think those are conversations that's going to be difficult. But regardless of how you and I saw things and how you and I didn't see things, we didn't call each other selfish for our feelings. And I think that's where I come back to this. Our OP doesn't like hearing that his wife doesn't feel the empathy or the compassion that he does for his siblings. And he calls her essentially cold and callous for it, but doesn't actually put into consideration why it is that she's feeling what she is. Instead, combats it. And I think that is what's going to break the camel's back here.
you are correct. We've had to have these conversations, and we've had to agree. And that's the difference here, right? We've had to find the middle ground and see what makes us both happy with it. But it's definitely a conversation that couples need to have.
Well, I do wish that couple the best, whether they stay together or potentially go down different roads. I think no matter what, our OP definitely got an eye-opening perspective from the comment section. And let's go to our next story. Am I the a-hole for laughing at my brother's girlfriend after she asked me why none of us like her? My 20 females brother, Mark 23 male, has been with his girlfriend, 22 female Jane, for a year. She is one of the most passive, aggressive, snarky people you will ever meet. Her middle name is Petty. The thing that caused our family to keep her at arm's length was when she got mad at our mom for accommodating our younger sister's autism and not force-feeding her, as well as allowing her to read at the table, something that calms her down. She got on mom's arse for enabling an entitled brat. Another example was when my mom supported Mark's decision to get a tattoo he had been saving up for years. Jane proceeded to call Mom up to complain that he made the deposit with his hard-earned, saved money and had an appointment set. She told Mom that she wasn't going to allow this emotional incest anymore and that she's happy to make an appointment for all of us for family therapy, as this enmeshment is making her uncomfortable. She has continued to make comments like these, specifically to Mom, and it's disgusting how little respect she has for pretty much everyone but herself. She's not been invited to Christmas this year, but Mark is. It's unclear what they're planning to do yet. A few days ago, Jane called me as Mom had blocked her. She said she was 3 months pregnant and went on a long rant about the family dynamic. She then asked, "Why don't you all like me?" I laughed out of pure shock and asked if she was serious. She didn't even respond, just said, "I'll call you when you're in the mood to be more mature," and hung up. I told Mom about the situation and she's on my side, but Mark is fuming at me for laughing at Jane's question and angry at Mom for being on my side. Mom just told him that he needs to talk to Jane about her constant comments and insults, and she's expecting an apology. Mark won't talk to me, and Jane blocked my number. Am I the a-hole? Edit. The tattoo has got nothing to do with our mom. It's an octopus up his arm that my brother designed himself. He does art, and he wanted to be a tattoo artist. Am I the a-hole?
This story is a little bit confusing because what I almost want to say is it sounds like the girlfriend is weaponizing psychology verbiage.
That's a good way to put that.
Because I want to know, she says something about how her boyfriend has an incestual relationship with the mother, but I didn't hear anything that showed that, unless I'm missing it. But
no.
I mean, the only thing that I heard was that the boyfriend saved up for this octopus tattoo and that he talked with his mother about doing it.
Correct.
I don't know how that equals what she's insinuating, but
let me go ahead and actually provide you with a comment from our OP regarding that. The OP says the tattoo is an octopus going up his arm. She brought up the emotional incest because my mom said she liked the design and he should go for it.
What? That doesn't make any sense. She's being a supportive mother. So the other thing that really bothers me about our OP is she says that her boyfriend has a sister that has autism.
Correct.
And at the dinner table, I guess in order to calm herself down, she reads a book. My question would be, why does she have such a big problem with that?
Let me actually provide you with a portion of one of our OP's comments regarding her sister that has autism. She says, "My sister has an official autism diagnosis and we find out in 2 days if she has ADHD. The book reading is a way of self-soothing, something recommended to us by a professional. She wanted to read at the table to calm herself down after Jane brought her dog with her to dinner after being explicitly told not to because the dog is mostly untrained and jumps up on my sister. The force feeding thing was about mashed potatoes. My sister cannot handle them because of sensory issues. Jane had made the mash and was offended she wasn't eating them and put them on her plate. This upset my sister. We ate one time as planned. Reading at the table isn't that deep.
It's not. And if it's not your house, it's not your rules. So you shouldn't be concerning yourself with how other people live if it's not bothering anyone else. So this story culminates in a conversation that she's having on the phone with ROP.
Correct.
And I guess frustrations got to an all-time high. And then Jane asks, why doesn't the family like her? And then in response, ROP laughs. That's what she's asking for, is that she's the a-hole for that moment. Would I have laughed in someone's face, especially when they are at that level of making me exasperated? Because that's what this sounds like. Everyone's just exhausted with Jane. I'm not certain if they have told Jane what she's been doing towards the family and how upset and, again, exhausted they are towards her attitude and the treatment of everyone. I'm not sure if they've done that with her because they all sound young. They're in their 20s, early 20s, right?
Correct.
I wouldn't have gone about laughing. I probably would have taken that moment in time to explain exactly what's been going on and why everyone feels the way they do. Because all you're doing at that point is just making the situation far worse, far more dramatic than it needed to be. I don't think you're the a-hole for having that reaction towards Jane. I just would have gone about it differently.
So our consensus on Reddit is not the a-hole. In fact, there was one really funny comment who essentially tried to twist the entire story to be in favor of Jane. And it spiraled out of control. They changed facts. And it was one of those things where Redditors came out saying, wait, so you tried to change this entire story because you're trying to view it from Jane's perspective rather than looking at the situation that you're being given and then providing your input on that instead. It was absolutely wild. I generally try and give benefit of the doubt on both sides. Based on my own experiences, there's always 3 sides to a story. Your side, their side, and the truth. And if you're trying to find the truth, there needs to be some middle ground. Now, there are some stories where, I've heard it. I've seen some bits of it where you cannot believe somebody would be a certain way, and they are. But twisting an entire story that really has nothing to do with you to be in favor of this Jane person has really baffled me as to the reasons why this person would do it.
Maybe
unless
they're Jane.
They are Jane. Or they are a Jane-like person in their lives. Inside of their story, they're saying that the boyfriend's family is out of control, that essentially he would have wiped out their entire bank account to go ahead and get this tattoo rather than actually listen to our poster's words with that said that he saved up years to do this tattoo, to essentially do it responsibly. It really does baffle me. And if anybody's interested in looking in the comment section, you'll definitely see this person writing their piece in it. I do have to agree with you, Timstradamus. I would try not to laugh in anyone's face, regardless of what's going on. But I definitely can see it as if somebody asked me a question that I thought was ludicrous and I went, like, I really can see that being just a jerk reaction and it not being like a true like laugh in their face. But for them, that's how they'd see it.
Sure. And that's why I said in that moment, if she had that reaction and it be somewhere out of just a pure exhaustion and a mystification of why you don't understand why we don't like you, I can see where that happens. But she genuinely asked a question. That's a moment in time where you can take and teach.
Well, let's go to our very last story of the day and see if you can laugh in this situation's face.
Ha.
Am I the a-hole for not showing up to the restaurant to teach my wife a lesson? Whenever I, 42 male, take my wife, 39 female, out on dates, she just gets to show up looking pretty. But I have to plan the venue, account for dietary restrictions, decide on the ice cream place after, calculate travel time both ways, as well as accounting for the ice cream place and a host of other things in addition to looking pretty. In short, I have been getting stressed out by planning dates and bearing the mental load. I first heard about the mental load online, and the mental load is an invisible burden that comes about that the other partner doesn't appreciate, And I realized that I've been shouldering the mental load visibly all alone. The worst part is that my wife will say that she didn't like the place, or she would say that last time was better, but she doesn't actually do any of the planning. And when I bring this up, she just puts out suggestions like, oh, we should do Italian. But Italian is not an actual restaurant. It is just a vague taxonomy that groups numerous restaurants under one umbrella on the basis of ethnic similarity. I was tired of bearing the mental load and doing all this thankless labor invisibly, and on top of that, being forced to dress nice, but only being noticed for my appearance, as in my wife would say I look shabby if I wore a collared shirt despite her not noticing the mental load I was actually carrying. So I hatched a plan. I told my wife that we would drive there separately since I was going to take a bit longer to get ready since I had to take a nap. She said that she'll go ahead first and hold the table for the reservation that I had already made and planned for by myself. But my actual plan was to ditch the date to leave her hanging, thereby showing her that I have been feeling unappreciative and left alone to handle the massive mental load. 2 hours and 10 missed calls later, my wife came back. I tried to talk to her, to explain that the intention was not to hurt her, and then I started to talk about the mental load. But throughout it all, I could tell she wasn't listening, and when I told her that I felt hurt that she was invalidating me, she just put on earbuds and proceeded to ignore me by listening to music. I was worried that maybe she'd be mad at me, at what I did, but she didn't grasp the overall concept of the situation. Am I the a-hole?
No.
I got you to laugh in the face of the situation.
Oh, man. It's so tragic the way sometimes people will try to prove points to each other. Because he has every right to feel the way he does. What he failed to do was just do the bare minimum of what you're supposed to do in a relationship. Communicate honestly. He says that, well, she was upset with me, but she's not getting the point that I wasn't trying to make her upset and hurt her. What you did was intentional, and it was to make her upset and hurt her. You wanted to prove a point. It wasn't to make her all of a sudden have an aha moment at her expense. If you're feeling a certain way and things that your partner is or is not doing in this case are giving you pause as to the amount of stress it's putting on to you, you have every right to come to your partner and talk to them about it. Putting them in a stressful situation where you sent them early to a dinner reservation where they called you, I guess, 10 times and sat at the restaurant for 2 hours to find out at the end that you were just proving a point when they got home. You're not going to get what you're looking for, especially when emotions are running high. The best time to have that conversation would have been before you set the reservation. Sit down with her and have a true conversation about how you're feeling like you're less important. Because that's what this comes down to. In my opinion, although I do feel bad for you, you guys need to go get into some type of couples counseling and learn how to speak with each other about the true wants and the needs. Because if all you're going to do is the tit for tat and the petty, I'm going to prove or show you, you're going to find out that that's going to end the relationship quicker than anything else. Because you're going to create animosity and distrust. And I don't know if that's what you want. I just think you want to be heard and understood. And that's super important for everybody. In my opinion, you would be the a-hole for wanting to prove a point to your wife in this fashion. Get your butt into counseling because you guys need to be given the tools to be able to function within this relationship, especially if you want it to be healthy.
So the consensus on Reddit was overwhelmingly our OP is the a-hole. I cannot tell you how some people were upset in his use of trying to essentially saying that planning a date night would be a mental load.
For some people that might be.
And I can understand that. I truly do. For me, anytime it comes to planning, it can be one of the most stressful times and the most rewarding when everything works out just as planned. When it comes to the big things that we plan, the things where you and I decide we've saved up an entire year to do that one vacation for those 3 days, that I would like everything to go perfectly because we put in so much time and effort for 1 year of savings to do those 3 days of fun.
But we plan those things together.
Exactly.
Step by step.
It sounds like our OP's taken on this mental load, wanting that appreciation back.
Yes.
Regardless of how the outcome of whatever that trip is, he wants the positive appreciation. But when you decide to want to go out on that limb and realize that sometimes, regardless of how much you plan for, everything doesn't go as planned, should not be where you have to teach your partner a lesson because things isn't what I wanted it to be. Because Timstradamus, you and I have planned some things out great, and we've still had a bunch of stuff fall through the cracks where we're trying to scramble and make sure that things get fixed. But the nice part is you've never let me shoulder that alone. I think one of the biggest problems was a lot of the times when it comes to understanding the mental load, it becomes a mental load because people have talked to try and get that off of them, and it hasn't happened. I think this is just a difficult one for me to truly, I guess, in a way, properly empathize with our OP for. And maybe it was just the way that he was talking in the comment section that has me very jaded to our OP in general, which is it would combat other people and one would never answer their questions on, well, what is it that your wife brings to the table? What does she do? Right? What mental load does she have that you're aware of? And our OP has constantly in the comment section blowing it off that she's got no mental load, has never answered what she does for work or what things she contributes for the relationship. I understand an argument has two sides. We're hearing our OP side, but our OP refuses to provide the commenters and essentially you and I with the side of what his wife brings to the table.
I guess I'll say it like this. Regardless of what she does or does not bring to the table, there was a way to have handled that situation. If
That's
he's
very
feeling
true.
like he's not getting what he's putting into the relationship, because that's what I'm boiling this down to. If that's how you feel, you owe it to your partner to talk to them and try to find a balance.
So let me go ahead and read to you what one commenter said and how our OP responded to it. And maybe you'll be able to, let me just go ahead and read this.
Okay.
People who grew up not feeling heard tends to use this kind of detrimental reasoning. If I do something to hurt the other person as much as they hurt me, maybe they will understand. It's pretty flawed, unfortunately. Our OP responded, exactly. This commenter understands where I'm coming from and why I acted this way.
No, you misread it.
And this is where, when I constantly read into the OP's comment section or how they're responding to other commenters regarding the situation, where it's almost like you didn't truly come to the AITA forum to get real feedback on whether what you did was an a-hole moment.
Yeah.
He came there expecting for a lot of people to side with him because he felt like he was right. And I think that's one of the reasons why I can't, in my right mind, feel okay with excusing any of that. Everybody bears some form of mental load. That doesn't give you the right to try and find a pass online because what you did was despicable. I definitely don't condone ditching anybody at anything. That person expects to spend time with you.
ROP definitely needs to get himself into therapy. You got to be given the tools to be able to handle your emotions properly, especially when you're dealing with a relationship. It's not acceptable just to send someone to a restaurant and hope they come back ready to talk to you about your feelings.
I also agree. I think that communication should have been the first thing.
If you have to start a sentence with, I have to teach the person I love a lesson, stop. Don't do that. Talk. There's a lot of drama that could have just been easily solved by being honest and direct. You can just hope that he takes the feedback, but it sounds like maybe he's not, and he's always going to be right. That's what makes you wrong.
Agreed.
Well, was that our last story?
That was our last story.
Good way to get us kicked off into the new year.
The first weekend of the new year.
Yeah. Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you see in the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We regularly post on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We would also love to thank all of our patrons for your support.
Yes, we love and appreciate every single one of you. And I'll leave you with a question today. What did you guys get for Christmas?
I mean, Timstradamus got the head of Sauron right there on his left.
Yep, and it's dope.
And Timstradamus got me an amazing mushroom back purse. It's essentially my purse, but it's one of those mini backpacks.
Yeah,
It's
cute.
a back purse.
And a follow-up question. Did you make it to Christmas before you opened up your gifts?
Oh, no.
Because we have never made it to a Christmas. As long as I've been with Voyse, we have never made it to a Christmas where we actually open gifts on Christmas.
To me, Christmas is the entire month of December,
Yep.
and therefore we must share gifts sporadically throughout the month.
That's exactly what happens.
So yes, we technically never open up presents on Christmas unless it's from family members.
Yep.
But between us, it's always before then.
Never. Even before we got married. We have never made it to Christmas Day.
Keep Christmas in your heart.
And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.
And maybe I'll open up another present.
There are 12 silver sovereigns in my pocket.
And a hat full of dreams.